I'm in a complete mess about this one already, and I'm going to try and rationalise my feelings about protesters targeting works of art, because you may remember just a week ago we had quite an involved discussion about how to treat non-violent protesters, whether they are a case apart from other criminals when convicted in a court of law, whether they might deserve different treatment for a number of reasons. You know, that prison really doesn't work for them. First, we're releasing convicts who served only a fraction of their time behind bars because our jails are full to bursting, thanks to chronic underfunding of our criminal justice system, including violent offenders. So, you know, releasing violent people to lock up the non-violent doesn't make sense. Two, I would say jailing protesters risks making heroes of them. And finally, perhaps more pertinently, punishing activists is unlikely to change their thinking. They're unlikely to be rehabilitated. In fact, I suspect jail time may even harden their mindset. So what is the point? We were talking last week about the Just Stop Oil protesters who got 5 years for conspiring over a Zoom call to block traffic, and then how a bunch of Greenpeace protesters, it was a week ago on Friday, who'd climbed over Rishi Sunak's home when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister to drape banners. They'd had their cases chucked out. And then yesterday, minutes after 2 more Just Stop Oil protesters were sent down, this time for attacking a Van Gogh painting with Heinz soup, another group then attacked 2 more paintings of sunflowers by the great master, again with tomato soup. So Phoebe Plummer is one of those who got jailed. She got 2 years for causing an estimated £10,000 worth of damage to the frame of Sunflowers 1888. And Anna Holland got 20 months for the same. And that means that you now have 25 Just Stop Oil activists in prison. A year in prison costs you and me 50 grand. So that's what, £1.25 million a year is the bill to keep them locked up. And if you were listening to last week's debate, you'd have probably felt I was opposed to jailing non-violent activists. And, I think I still am. Which brings me to the paintings. But they're not just paintings, though, are they? I am not an art aficionado, but even a simpleton like me can recognise the power of Van Gogh. There's an intensity. It's never going to be equalled. It's never going to be surpassed. They are masterpieces. They are treasures. They are priceless, and they are unique. They are proof that man's artistic strivings can indeed bring him closer to God, to perfection. Oh, listen to him. He got a university degree. Is a painting more valuable than your nan stuck in an ambulance in a Just Stop Oil traffic jam? And I was wrestling with this last night, and I can't answer that question. I can't answer that. I have to say, in the grand scheme of things, the Van Gogh paintings will resonate with other human beings eons after I'm dead, and assuming no one destroys them. Are Van Gogh's paintings more important than me? Well, I can only conclude this. I think they probably are. Ambulances get held up in traffic jams all the time. Are town planners to blame for that? Are poor contractors? Are government funding cuts? Should all of those groups be in jail for stopping your nan getting to hospital in time? Maybe, but of course none of them are. Which brings me back to people attacking paintings with soup getting sent down. I don't know. The paintings are icons we are all invested in, emotionally, intellectually. I might even risk saying spiritually. An attack on these paintings feels like an attack on me, on you, on all of us. It's more than stopping traffic. Traffic jams are just a daily feature of our lives. But this, I do think, warrants a proper punishment. I don't care if it's got glass in front of it. You're taking a risk, aren't you? And then in the same breath, I'm going to contradict myself in acknowledging the point I made earlier, that prison isn't going to achieve anything. It's not going to change the mind of Phoebe Plummer. I mean, her court address, she made a 20-minute address to the court in which she concluded by saying that, she said, whilst of course there are reasons why my life and the lives of people I love and care for would be easier if I don't receive prison sentences, my choice is to accept whatever sentences I receive with a smile, knowing that I have found peace in doing what I can to defend countless millions of innocent people suffering and dying. I don't think prison's going to change that. Oh, I'm still conflicted. But I do find, for me, attacking the paintings, I find it as a bigger sin. 03456060973. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe there isn't a wrong or a right in this. I'm going to go for guidance, first of all, to Fiona Atkinson, a Just Stop Oil spokesperson. Good morning to you, Fiona.
Hi, Matthew.
I mean, you're presumably take the view that no Just Stop Oil activist should be in prison.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody who's committed a non-violent act should be in prison. So, we've got a crisis in our prisons, haven't we?
We have.
Could I just say, in response to your confusion, that there's like a giant elephant in the room that you haven't mentioned. And no wonder you feel you can't come to a conclusion, because the big issue that you've left out is where we are in terms of the whole of the human race, which is at this moment barreling towards 2.7 degrees by the end of the century. And I just wonder, Matthew,
how does attacking a painting change the temperature of the planet? Just explain that to me.
It's not. Look, it's got me on your show.
It's not because he painted in oils, is it? Is that the complaint?
Should we just get rid of it? It's not about the painting. It's not about Anna. It's not about Phoebe. It's not about Just Stop Oil. Just Stop Oil are only amplifying what is going on in the world right now, what the scientists are saying and what we can see out of our window. Good God, Matthew, it's September, and whole tracts of England are under huge amounts of water, motorways turning into lakes at the same time as South America experiencing
Fiona, okay, with respect, I've heard the argument from Just Stop Oil more times than I care to remember. If you want to waste airtime talking about the argument and not engaging with the subject, which is whether or not attacking a Vincent van Gogh painting is warranting prison for an activist.
Hang on. First of all, they didn't attack the painting. What Phoebe said was, this painting is protected. So she said, do we care more about art than we do life itself? And she asked that question 2 years ago. And for you to dismiss, the judge dismissed the way we're going in the world. He actually said, Judge Hare said, facing the end of the world is neither here nor there. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm a grandma, and I know you're a loving dad. We're not just talking about a bit of a tricky future for them. We're talking about.
But have you considered that that you're failing to get your message across, that you can't even persuade a judge to understand your arguments? Perhaps because you constantly interrupt. Perhaps you don't listen. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but maybe you want to ask yourself, if I didn't target Van Gogh paintings, I started targeting, judges, maybe the judges would understand better, because attacking Van Gogh paintings, you don't seem to be winning anyone over.
What Just Stop Oil did in one of the trials, the Whole Truth 5, were trying to tell the truth in court, and they got a climate scientist lined up. That climate scientist wasn't allowed to speak in court. Matthew, you have just introduced an item, and the whole thing is about climate breakdown, and you failed to mention it. The media.
No, that's your perspective. The whole thing for me is an unwarranted attack on a painting. You're the one that's saying it's about the climate change issue, because that's the climate change issues that did it. But for me, the issue at hand today is not discussing the effects of climate change. It's asking whether people that attack paintings should be locked up, whatever the reason. Lovely talking to you, Fiona. I'm sure we'll talk again. Well, Raj Chada is a criminal defence lawyer from Hodge, Jones and Allens, and he represented the Just Stop Oil activists who threw soup over the sunflowers. He joins me now. Good morning to you, Raj.
Good morning, Matthew.
I'm tempted to ask you the question I'm fretting about, whether paintings are a case apart. But first of all, the sentencing. Were you surprised, disappointed by 2 years being handed down for Phoebe Summers?
Hugely disappointed. I think the judge sentenced the defendants for a crime that they hadn't committed. They were charged with damaging the frame of the painting, yet the sentencing remarks talked about the potential damage to the painting itself. And just as a fundamental principle, I think that is wrong. That is not what the jury convicted them of. And if the prosecution had wanted to charge that as an attempt, they should have done that. And so there's a fundamental problem here with the sentencing.
Has the judge responded because of the nature of the attack? Is he perceiving an attack on Van Gogh as being an attack on, as I said in my introduction, like an attack on all of us, on an icon?
It is an action on our cultural heritage. Of course it is. We'd all agree with that. But you have to look at what the effect was. The effect was damage in the region to the frame of around £10,000 and no damage whatsoever to the painting. And as the defendants had said throughout, it was a symbolic act. They sought to draw attention to their cause, and rightly to their cause. So where we dispute and how this went wrong, it is, of course, we need to take into account conscientious motivation. That's been part of our legal fabric for over a century. And yet at the minute, we think sentencing in the UK has taken a wrong turn. And protest is almost seen as an aggravating factor rather than something that should be properly taken into account.
I'm minded to agree. I'm then left floundering about what kind of punishment would be appropriate.
There's a range of punishments that would have been available to the judge, from community order to a suspended sentence rather than immediate custodial. And for one of the defendants, the judge accepted that she would not take part in any such actions or disruptive actions in future. So one really has to ask, what is the purpose of an immediate custodial sentence at a time when the prison population is so high, others are being let out of prison, and these two peaceful protesters are imprisoned?
I must say, I do struggle with the notion of prison for non-violent protesters, I have to say, Raj, and pleasure having you on your show. Thank you very much. Fair play to one of our listeners, Will in Brighton, who messaged, listening to the willful damage done to our rivers puts the damage of a painting frame into perspective, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And those responsible for damaging our paintings really should be punished rather than enriched, as happens in our system. But rivers can be put right. And if the painting, lots of you saying the painting wasn't damaged because it's got a glass cover in front of it, if the soup had leaked down through capillary action, from those of you who've done basic science, then maybe the painting could be damaged. It's a risk, isn't it? It's a high risk to damage something that is irreplaceable. David's on the line from Edinburgh. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning, Matthew. Wonderful show, great broadcaster. What I'd like to say about it, I think I do sympathise with the climate change people, but I think it was quite unnecessary to throw tomato soup on the way they protested onto the glass. I mean, try and tell that to the art world. I don't think they'll have any sympathy for them. So I think under the circumstances, although it's quite a severe sentence, I think it was justified. Because as far as you said over the phone, on the radio, that someone else the next day went and then threw. Oh,
it was an hour later. It was an hour later. So I mean, see, but then the point then, David, is I suppose that we jailed the two protesters who'd done the first soup chucking. Yes. And then an hour after we've jailed them, there's more soup chucking. So what? I'm going to contradict myself again. What have we achieved by jailing them? We just ended up with more soup being chucked on paintings. David?
Well, I know what you're saying, but it can't keep going on. After all, these paintings are national treasures.
That's the international treasures. They are international treasures. David, thank you. Michael's in Stockport. Good morning to you.
You're absolutely right, Matthew. I mean, they are international treasures. I mean, if somebody was to set fire to a First Folio Shakespeare edition, I mean, to be honest, I'd be so annoyed I might shoot them.
What if it was covered in glass and they just burnt the glass, or they had perspex and they just melted some perspex? Would you feel?
Well,
it's so close, then, isn't it? So close.
It's the fabric of our society. It goes straight through us. It's nature. I mean, that beautiful painting, that guy suffered so much in his life.
So that guy, Will, the message from Will, listening to the damage done to our rivers puts the damage of a painting frame into perspective.
That's rubbish. Let's face it, at the end of the day, the seas are going to rise and it's going to rain a lot. But at least we can irrigate the deserts with Scottish water. I mean, how about that for a plan?
So, prison is the right punishment, or it's the only punishment? Prison's the right punishment.
Absolutely, yes. Send them down, absolutely.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Listening to that is Susie in Westminster. Good morning to you, Susie.
Oh, hi, Matthew.
Hi.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the paintings and about Van Gogh, and I read recently that the scientists have mapped his, Starry, Starry Night, the stars and the planets and everything. And they did some measurements, and I can't remember exactly, what it was, but he's got it all sort of mapped out. And also, when you think about the sunflowers and everything that Van Gogh, with all his mental illness and everything, what he painted, he was so passionate about the sky and the earth and the sunflowers and the fields, and you see how he would agree with. He wouldn't have. He would have thought they've done a fantastic thing, because they're making. If you destroy the earth, you're destroying all his paintings and everything that he lived for and he died for so early. So that's how I sort of felt about it.
You think that he would be empathetic to the cause? Yeah. I hadn't considered that.
I know, because you hadn't sort of, what you were saying. I think it just came to me that the feeling about the earth, the paintings, all his passion, when you think about all his amazing paintings, and that he never received any recognition while he was alive, did he? And the poor thing, his mental illness would be treated now, and it.
Whoa, Susie! That one I can't let go unpunished. If you think his mental illness is going to get sorted in 21st century Britain,
totally.
He'd be in probably just as bad a fix today as he was back then. Susie, lovely call. I mean, we don't know, do we? So we're guessing, but maybe he would be empathetic to the feelings of the Just Stop Oil protesters. Ed is in Newbury. Good morning to you, Ed.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. I kind of enjoy the intellectual game of not knowing what I really think about something, and I'm doing it live on air, and I do feel passionate about the paintings, but that message from Will, I care passionately about the waterways, and I agree that sending a couple of Just Stop Oil protesters down for 2 years while water companies get rich, that doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I'll tell you, I also feel passionately about paintings, and I feel passionately about art, but I'd like for there to be a planet for human beings to continue doing art on.
Me too.
I think that the sentencing is ridiculous. I think that if you're going to punish protesters, that's a very slippery slope to start going down. But we're talking about a generation of people who, particularly young people, I'm 19, we don't have any reason to buy into these systems that are... We haven't seen any benefit from the government.
So my producer, Elliot, is only a few years older than you, and we had exactly this conversation this morning at about 5:15. He said, young people, because they're excluded in so many ways because of the financial structures of our country and such, aren't buying into it. And that's just what you've said. Yeah,
listening to James O'Brien a few weeks ago, he was talking about how many people are economically inactive that are my age, and I see it around me. We don't benefit. Well, there's nothing for us in today's society. You're only going to see more and more of this kind of action happening because it's all that's available to us at this point. So.
Okay, can I'm minded to agree, because I felt I was properly schooled this morning by Elliot. It's something I hadn't considered. Now, I am sympathetic to the Just Stop Oil cause. I'm just not sure attacking paintings is the way to get your message across, or indeed throwing dye over Stonehenge that even washes away. But Stonehenge is a religious monument for people, and attacking religious iconography is no way to win an argument. But all I want to know, Ed, is I don't think prison is going to work. It's not going to change the protesters. So I just want to know what you think. What punishment would be appropriate?
Is punishment appropriate, is what I would argue.
Fair point.
If you're going to punish protesters, why are you not punishing oil executives that have deliberately spread misinformation and continue to deliberately spread misinformation and continue to extract oil from our resources, continue to extract fossil fuels and burn them? If you're going to punish protesters who are against the thing, if you're aware that it's a problem, we need to punish the people that are causing the problem in the first place, not the protesters. That's my opinion on the matter.
Ed, nicely delivered. Thank you. Have a great Saturday. Robert's in East Grinstead down in West Sussex. Good morning to you, Robert.
Thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
Good morning.
Pleasure.
Hi. I just to listen to one of the callers speaking about Van Gogh earlier, it is very difficult to get into his mindset.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know.
Views. Yeah. I mean, one of his early paintings was he did record a lot of poverty.
Yes.
For all we know, he might paint paintings about the impositions put on people by ULEZ.
Very true.
Various draconian environmental policies. I'm a sea swimmer, and I appreciate organised control of the environment, monitoring of pollution. I appreciate that, and I think that's good. However, I want to draw again, like many viewers have done, to Van Gogh's paintings. He can come across as a cliche as an artist because we're over familiar with his work in books.
Yes.
If you go to the National Gallery where they have one of his paintings, one of these sunflower paintings, I've seen them in real life. The first time I saw them in real life was their amazingly spacious paintings.
Yeah.
And it highlights a difference between them in books and real life.
Yes.
I can advise, I know places to get more affordable frames, but I would say that perhaps it's crazy. I voted for the Green Party in 2010, 2015. I won't be again. I will not be doing that again because I think environmental policies are over the top. David Attenborough, a long time ago, said one of the easiest ways is to, help the environment is keep an eye on population. He said never enforce it. He said maybe just 1 or 2 kids only. Now, I think that we've had debates on subjects in society. We had a debate, many people voted in 2016 to try and get a control on immigration, just a little check. They didn't want, disruption to trade, just a little check on the border. I'm not going to go and chuck baked beans over, number 10's door just because, I'm going to highlight it here because they seem to be doing nothing and they don't sort of do it, which would help the environment.
Can I just... just that previous caller, the young guy, 19 years old, and him saying that his generation are not engaged. There's nothing in it for them. They've got no skin in the game, to Nick Labour's phrase of the day, because they don't have houses, they're not going to get homes, they don't have high-paid jobs. So what else is there for them to do? Was kind of the line of his argument, and I it's the not being involved, the younger generation having no skin in the commercial game, that maybe we will see more protests. Do you think?
Well, I think the thing is, for those people, and I respect people that have environmental concerns, it's a beautiful planet, we need to look after it. But I would say to those people that say they have no skin in the game, the better way to do it is, what a lot of them do is they modify their own practices, and that has more of an influence. I've got a friend who's been a committed environmentalist for about 15 years. I was very impressed by his behaviour. I mean, when he opened his when he bought his first house, he had a housewarming party where he fed us snail risotto. He reared snails in a tank.
I think you'll find millions of people in France think that's a wonderful idea. And I, for one, actually, I concur. Lovely talking to you, Robert. Thank you very much. Liz is hanging on the line down in Croydon to talk about damaging paintings or attacking paintings. Good morning to you, Liz.
Oh, hi, Matthew. Lovely to speak to you. Lovely show. So I was actually at the National Gallery yesterday at the Poets and Lovers exhibition when this actually happened. And I'd seen the news that the other two had been jailed.
Prisons, yeah. So what happened? Talk us through it. What did you see?
Well, I kind of was just at that. One of the paintings that was sort of damaged. Well, it wasn't damaged, but the one that they threw soup over. And I sort of just walked away temporarily into just the next room. I heard a lot of commotion, shouting, people go, no, and I sort of rushed back in to see what was happening. At that point, there were sort of these 3 protesters. One of them was a young person. 2 of them are actually, I'd say, in their senior years, which was interesting.
Was there any love for what they were doing? Was there cheering?
No, absolutely not. And actually, that made me feel, I actually felt quite bad. It made me feel actually quite sorry for them because people were really attacking them verbally and shouting things like, get a job, shame on you, why'd you do that? I know. So instantly, a lot of vitriol, which made me. I didn't feel like that instantly. I felt a bit sorry for them, and I just thought this is stupid. You've achieved nothing because your message is kind of lost. This is not where you need to be. This is if all the things that you need to maybe throw some soup at, probably not the painting. So I just thought it was just a bit sort of like just. they lost the room basically. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had a very similar thought to that lady that called you a few callers ago, who said that maybe Van Gogh himself, with his sort of love of nature, would have probably been sort of sympathised with the cause. And it's funny because that's really one of the first thoughts that I had when I was there. And yeah, I don't know, just something to think about. Really.
It is, but of course, it just adds another variable into the mix that we'll never know. But what we do know is that fossil fuel production is having a massively negative effect on our climate. Liz, lovely talking to you.